Now, I'm entering YouTube man mode. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We're looking at Scaramouche today. I'm going to take an early look at Scaramouche. Now, I'm going to preface this in both of these videos. The website that this is using, before people chuck it in the comments, what website is this? What website is that? Honey Impact. It's a banger of a website. Honey Hunter World, Honey Impact, whatever you want to call it. Just type that in. It'll come up. It's a rather simple and straightforward way to get some easy data, and just like a good place to get some old data on old characters, not even new stuff, not even new data, but like old data as well. And it'll give you a lot of good information. But regardless, we're here for a Scaramouche, the Wanderer. Hey, what's up, Levi? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're having a great day. Welcome, welcome. Scaramouche is a main DPS catalyst animo. He's also the, I believe, the middle-sized man. He's not a short man because there's no short men, but he's the middle-sized man, same size as the Traveler. Okay, Ascension stat is crit rate, 19.2% bonus crit rate, with a base of 5%, so that you can put yourself at 24.2% crit rate if you get him to level 80 plus / 90. Will you want to get him to level 90? Absolutely. He's an animo character, so you will want to get him to this level 90 threshold. So you'll have a baseline, no artifacts, no weapon. You'll have 24.2% crit rate, which is extremely good. Now, before we continue any further, these are his that was a terrible zoom in. These are his Ascension materials. Obviously, animo gems, because he's an animo character. You need 168 Rukashika mushrooms. You're gonna need the Kairagi material, a lot of them, a lot of Mora. And then the Aeon Blight Drake boss material. Aeon Blight Drake is a Sumeru boss found in the bottom right. You'll find him very easily. He's not difficult to fight or find. Both of them are very easy to do. But pressing onward with his kit. Scaramouche had, from my time of reading Scaramouche's stuff, let me zoom in here a bit so it's a bit more legible for people watching. He has two different playstyles. And what you level up in talents depends on which playstyle you want to go for, but let's just go through them. Normal attack. It says normal attacks. He's an animo guy. Catalyst character, does animo hits. Punchy punch. I'm pretty sure he punches. I actually don't know. I think his normal attacks are like Hazo's. He just punches with wind. Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's an airplane going on outside. That's great. My recommendation: level up his normal attack because of the reason for his skill. There's really nothing to talk about with his like normal attack kind of a talent skill thing. It's just normal attack. He does damage. If he has a 3-hit combo like Yen Fei and Nilo, he has a 3-hit attack combo, which is really good. The 3-hit characters or 3-hit combo characters are really good generally. Yen Fei is like one of the best 4-star DPSs in my opinion. But the reason I say level up his normal attack is because of his skill. Now, what does his skill do? Let's read it from the top. You press his E, you deal a bit of animo damage, and you leap into the air, entering the wind-favored state. Right, wind-favored state. And what does the wind-favored state do? Well, you enter a persistent hovering state. Yes, you do stay in the air. You are levitating. And this increases your normal and charge attack damage. It also stops charge attacks from consuming stamina. And then while this state is active, the Wanderer's movements gain the following effect. Now, before we go into these movement things, I should preface that they don't actually explain it here. When you enter the wind-favored state, you also get this resource called Sky Dweller Points. You get that resource, Sky Dweller Points. And then, when you are in the air, moving around, being Windman, you consume these Sky Dweller Points constantly just because you're in the air. So persistently consume Sky Dweller Points to maintain this hovering state. The rate that you use them at, it's not really clarified here in any way, so we don't know. But I'd assume it's like maybe 5 a second, 10 a second. It would be kind of somewhere around there. Not 1 a second, because you can then be like flying forever. But it would be like somewhere around the 5 to 10 a second or so. So you can stay in this mode for about 10 seconds, which is, yeah, about reasonable. So just being there consumes this Sky Dweller point. Then you have sprinting in the air, consumes it, and you can just kind of run in the air. It's quite simple. You can just kind of like do a Goku kind of float around. And then also jumping expends the same Sky Dweller points. You can hover around. It's kind of, you just kind of get a bit of like pseudo Minecraft creative mode. It's quite simple, quite straightforward. And then running out of these Sky Dweller points will end the wind-favored state. A second cast during the duration will also end it. So you press it, you can press it again to auto cancel. You kind of play around with it, right? Now, As for what the actual wind favored state does, it really doesn't do anything apart from put you in the air and just give you a massive damage bonus. You still have the same playstyle of just attacking. That's why it's imperative, if you'll go for this kind of build, the skill build, is imperative to level up your attack, because the skill gives you a damage bonus to your normal and charge attacks. So at level 10, which is the general level that you'll have this at if you're going to actually build this character and invest in him, you'll crown him, obviously. You get a 68% normal attack damage bonus and 54.4% charge attack damage bonus. And that's essentially on top of this, kind of. Actual mathematics, I have no fucking idea how it works. I'm not a mathematician or that. But essentially, you increase your damage, your normal attack damage by 68%, and you increase your charge attack by 54.4. It's really, really good. Now, as for the cooldown, it's 6 seconds, so you're going to have an extremely high uptime on this, I believe. This is the part that's hard to figure out about how many you expend just by being in the air versus how often you're going to be able to cast it, because if it has a 6 second cooldown, you can be in the air every 6 seconds. That means you should be able to expend all of your stuff in 6 seconds. It's a bit of a debacle in my head as to what, like, the actual expenditure rate on these things is. I wish it kind of clarified, but regardless. That is the kind of like the generic build, and I did preface this earlier, that these two characters are very simple, Farazan and Scaramouche. They're not actually that in-depth characters. So, normal attack and skill is like the one specific build. After that, you have his burst build. His burst is literally just Zhongli's Meteor, essentially. You just deal a lot of damage in like one go. Technically, Scaramouche does it in 5 different hits. He does 264.96% 5 times at level 10, which is, you know, I think that's on the higher end of the damage. I believe that's upwards of about 1,300 in total percent, 1,300% in total. So it's pretty high end damage. I can't remember who has. I think Hoot has like somewhere around there. I think Tartaglia is also in the thousands or so, but who knows? Regardless, 15-second cooldown, 60 energy costs. So you'll be doing it moderately frequently, and because you'll probably be running this guy with a full Animo team, or at least one Animo, or at least 2 Animos rather. Sorry, at least 2 Animos, maybe 3 if you're really feeling frisky or whatever. But it would be at least 2 Animos with a maybe Hydro Electro or some shit like that. So that's his, like, the fundamental part of his kit. Now onto the passives. First passive, not important, but Bows and Catalyst, more Ascension, decrease, useless money. Passive number 1, Jade Claimed Flower. This one is very important, very interesting. So when you use his skill, because his skill has this initial hit of damage right here, the skill damage, that means obviously it does Animo because he's an Animo guy. This initial hit of damage here, if you infuse it with an element, be it Hydro, Pyro, Cryo, or Electro, you get a different kind of buff, right? So Hydro gives you an extra 20, I can't say this word, Sky Dweller points. You get an extra 20, which is kind of not that great, but also not the worst thing out of these 4. Pyro gives you 30% attack, which is rather good, and then Cryo gives you 20% crit rate, which is also extremely good. And then Electro, as per usual, sucks ass and just gives you energy recharge, which with a 60 cost burst, you're really not going to need, especially if you're running double Animo. And you can have 2 of these buffs up simultaneously. Now, as for how the fuck that triggers, as to how you're going to trigger 2 of them consistently, get 2 of these buffs consistently, that's really up to the professionals to figure out. I'm just here to talk words. But you're obviously just going to want to go for the Pyro and Cryo infusion. At 30% attack with a 20% crit rate is, some would say ridiculous. But you're going to go with that. And that's his first passive, which is extremely good. Second passive, a bit harder to understand, but it's fine. So when you are normal and charge attacking in his skill, while you're floating in the sky, you have a 16% chance to obtain the descent effect. And then once you obtain this effect, the next time the Wanderer sprints whilst in this instance of the wind-favored state, this effect will be removed, and then you will shoot out, or rather, you won't consume Sky Dweller points. I guess that's a pretty important thing to say. You won't consume Sky Dweller points when you consume a descent effect. But when you sprint, you will fire off 4 wind arrows that deal 34% of his attack as Animo damage each. It's pretty good. Depends on how you keep track of the buff. That depends on if it's actually going to be powerful. If there's a decent indicator for when you have the descent effect, so you can actually then dodge at the right times and whatnot. That's going to be really good. But this kind of promotes pressing your skill and then not moving because you want to stay in the sky and not spend your Sky Dweller points as much as possible. And as for the last part here, this part is similar to the artifact that was released alongside Ayato, and it's essentially for each normal and charge attack that does not give you the descent effect, so essentially that doesn't proc this 16, the chance will increase by 12. So you don't proc it on the first hit, it'll go up to 28, and then 40, and then so on and so forth, plus 12 every single time, until you trigger it, and then it resets, and so on and so forth. It's a cycling effect. As for how many you'll get of these in one wind-favored state, I have no idea, because it's obviously chance, but expect maybe 3 at most, or 3 at minimum, if you're playing the character correctly. But it's not going to be like a super high damage source unless you have a specific constellation, which we'll get into now. I will say first, before we get into constellations, Scaramouche's constellations aren't overly powerful. He's not going to be a character that you go C6 for if you're... He's not. Let's just get it out of there. C1, Shoban Mofuriui Hagyu. When in wind-favored state, he gets an attack speed increase for his normal and charge attacks by 10%. It's really good. Attack speed is generally really good, specifically on him, where you actually want to be attacking faster because it essentially cycles a lot of your shit faster, right? It'll trigger this thing a lot faster, technically, and it'll trigger probably some other shit a lot faster, but mainly this one right here. It'll trigger that a lot faster. So 10% attack speed increase as well. The damage of your second passive, this passive right here, is increased by 15%. So this 35 right here turns into 50. It's pretty straightforward. Then each hit does 200% of Animo's attack damage when you have C1, which is decent. 10% attack speed, and then this thing gets a decent chunky buff. You'll be doing some pretty good burst damage once you get these procs here, but obviously that is a bit of RNG. C2, Niban Ebrijama Tsuki no Shiranami. When in the wind-favored state, the elemental burst, which I will not try to pronounce because even in my spare time I could still not figure out how to pronounce it, but whilst in wind-favored state, his elemental burst skill will see its damage increase by 3% per point of difference between the max amount of Sky Dweller points contrasted with the Sky Dweller's present capacity when using this skill. Through this method, you can get an increase of 150%. Now, let's summarize that in a better way, because Mihoyo definitely doesn't know how to word things properly. Essentially, for every point difference between the max amount that you have, which is 100 per cast, right here, or 120 if you get the Hydra Infusion, for every point of difference between the max and then your current amount that you have, which I'm assuming there's going to be a way to track it once we get the character, the difference between there, each point gives you 3% damage increase to a total of 150. How many points do you have to lose? 50. 50 times 3 are 150. There you go. You just need to lose 50, which is essentially going to be 50% of your bar. I'm assuming it's going to be showcased by a bar. This Sky Dweller points. Points? Yeah, points. That's going to be showcased by a bar. So once you get to halfway, just press your burst, and then you'll be able to do a massive 150% extra damage with your burst. And that kind of, if you get C2, that's when you kind of do a hybrid build, but that also means you're invested in the character. So that's when you do a hybrid build for Hazo. Not Hazo. Wrong character. Wanderer, Scaramouche, whatever the fuck you call him. Where you crown all 3 of his things, and essentially you kind of very easily cycle through everything that he does because low cooldown, low energy cost on everything, and you'll just be kind of like dishing out massive numbers constantly. So it's really good. C2, by the way, is where I would recommend stopping for Hazo. There's no reason to go past C2, really nothing of value past here. But we will read regardless. His C3 is his skill increase, which is the more important one in my opinion. His skill increase is a lot more important, I believe, because that, if you get his C3, that pushes the damage bonus to of your normal attack up to 77.75 and charge attack to 62.2, which I believe is a lot more important than whatever the burst is, which boosts it up to 312. But that's we'll get into that in a second. C4, when casting his elemental skill, should the passive, the one that you have to infuse with, be triggered, the character will gain enhancement effects in correspondence to the contacted elemental types and also gain a random untriggered enhancement effect. You need that passive to unlock it, right? Essentially, I only understand what half of this one. I only understand the last half. So when you trigger an elemental reaction with his initial hit of his skill, you'll get a random effect alongside the actual infusion effect that you did get. So if you infuse with Hydro, you'll randomly get one of the other three. And if you infuse with two of them, like just because you're a skillful player in some natural sense, then you'll get one of the other two by randomness, right? So that's essentially what that last part means, at least it's from my understanding. Now, as for this first part, the character will gain enhancement effects in correspondence to the contacted elemental types. I don't fucking know, but fair fucking enough. You'll gain a lot of things. Maybe you can get all 4 effects. If you like at least get 2, maybe this just means that you'll get the last 2 just because you have C4. Who knows? But just kind of know that you can get 3 or 2 if you're a good player. Something like that. You can consistently get 2 or 3 of these effects right here consistently. But I don't fucking know. C5 is his burst. Again, I don't think it's the important one, but C5 is the burst. And then C6, probably the most underwhelming C6 out of all C6s to exist, in my honest opinion. Wind Wanderer actively hits opponents with normal attacks while in wind-favored state. The following effects occur. Deals an instance of 40% attack as animo damage. This damage will be considered normal attack damage. Now, I can see the brokenness there. It kind of sounds like a bit of a Yelan C6, and we'll have to really see how much scaling it does, because obviously it's scaling off of normal attack damage, and that scales off of this shit here, and then it's like kind of cascading down. So maybe because it's cascading so much and so many percentage boosts are happening here, maybe you'll actually be decent, but it is 40% of the initial amount, so it's kind of like up and down. Who fucking knows? Because it's just of your attack. I can't really tell. But then the second effect is restore 4 Sky Dweller points to the Wanderer. Sky Dweller points can be restored in this manner every 0.2 seconds. This restoration can occur 5 times. You can restore a total of 20 Sky Dweller points. I guess you stay in the air a bit longer. There's no real reason for that. It's just going to prolong your DPS window. I think this is going to be a bit more of a hindrance than a bonus, because maybe you'll lose your team's buff effects if you try to utilize the extension. Depends on how extensive the extension is. Obviously we don't know how the decrease of Sky Dweller points, but if it's too long, then you're just going to lose buffs and do less damage, so that's bad. But if it's not too long, then it might be okay. But then again, C6 again, I don't want to talk it down. It could be strong. If this has no cooldown, if the deals an instance of 40% attack as normal, as animo damage, this is considered normal attack. If this has no internal cooldown, then that's really strong. But if it does have an internal cooldown, let's say of like 1 second or 0.5 seconds or something along those lines, then it's not going to be as strong as we perceive. But again, this is a hard one to gauge just because of like how what 40% of animo is attack is animo, and it cascades down because it's considered normal attack, and so on and so forth. I wouldn't recommend going there, personally. I'll be honest with you. C6 doesn't look that enticing. C2 is where the juice is really at, in my opinion. Because this means that you can really make a smooth character. It means you can utilize all of the character, get high value from all of the character, because you're obviously going to have these 2 effects here. His C1 makes him just faster and a bit more of a fast-paced character because you have attack speed, and then also lets you trigger this a lot more frequently. And then his C2 boosts your burst damage, thus you kind of like press E, deal damage, build up, press Q, deal damage, go down, fly up, and rinse and repeat, and so on and so forth, whilst you mix and match all your buffs. That is Hazo, not Hazo again. Fuck me. That is the Wanderer. God damn, I've said Hazo twice now, and that's terrible. That's the Wanderer on a fundamental scale. Now, just from this, he looks to be a very fun character. Here's why. Especially if you get a really good flow of this passive right here. His general kit is maybe not that amazing, because all it is fundamentally, just from the videos, and I'm not going to show any gameplay just in case people don't want to see gameplay, they just want to see numbers. Essentially, you press your E and you fly up into the sky and you just spam normal attacks. That's really all his gameplay is. So it's not really that much different. All it is that you're just now flying. So if you like flying, then you're going to like him, but that's all it is. Now, the reason I say that this passive has a chance to kind of make him a bit more interactive, it's because if you get these procs a lot more frequently, you're kind of flying, you're attacking, whoosh, 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 and then you get a proc and then you dodge, and then shoot things come out, and then you're like, whoosh, 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 whoa, whoa, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. So it's like, you can have a bit more interaction there instead of just spamming normal attack, which I think is good. And then obviously more interaction is added once you get C2, but obviously not everyone's going to get C2. But it should be noted that once you get C2, you're kind of going in and out of your burst and your skill and kind of mix and matching, jumping out of other characters, going in, burst, skill, skill, burst, attack, attack, dodge, dodge, attack, jump up, whatever. So you're doing a lot more once you get a lot more things for him. But baseline, the gameplay is rather just spam normal attacks. Very Ayato. Very Ayato. You're just kind of doing one button. And maybe some people like that, maybe some people don't. It's really up to you how you prefer to play the game. But that is the Wanderer. Fundamentally, how the Wanderer works. He's going to be probably a great main DPS, let's be absolutely real. And he's also the second Animo main DPS, second to Zhao. I don't believe there's any other main... Hazo, I guess, is another one, but let's say we're talking strictly 5 stars. He's the second 5-star Animo main DPS. First one is Zhao. And he's probably going to compete to a decent degree. Because, well, the Wanderer here can consistently do a lot more, seeing as he's a lot more skill reliant instead of Zhao, who is a lot more burst reliant. And it's a lot easier to have your skill than it is to have your burst, especially when it's on a 6-second cooldown. Now, as for the Wanderer's weapon, we are going to look at that as well. The Tuliatala Remembrance, or however you say this word, the Tutu. It looks cool, I'll be honest with you. Is there no, there's just an icon. There's nothing too crazy. But it is a crit damage catalyst. It looks really cool, and it's a crit damage catalyst. 44.1% crit damage, so it's not on the high end, something like the Aquila Aqua Simulacra and the Staff of Homer, where it's like 60 and 80. It's 44.1, but it does have a rather high base attack of 674.33, which is, you know, balances each other out. Obviously, the Ascension materials are here if you want to pre-farm them. And so that's really good. You know, you get high crit damage if you get the weapon, as well as you have a high base amount of crit rate, so you can just chuck on a crit rate helmet, and thus have decent crit rate. They just need to get a bit of sub here and there on the other artifacts, and thus get a bit of crit damage here and there, and you're absolutely smoky doky. But going on to the actual weapon's ability, normal attack speed is increased by another 10%. So if you get a C1, as well as this weapon, you got 20% attack speed increase for your normal attacks. Normal attacks, it should be stated. I think the Constellation is specifically, or rather, more broadly, for normal and charged, but the Catalyst is only for normal. So maybe that promotes a bit more of a normal attack build. But regardless, it's 10% there. It probably goes up, does it go up? It does go up at Refinement 5, it goes up to 20%. So if you just get this weapon at R5, which not a lot of people will do, let's preface that right now. Not a lot of people will do that. This weapon at R5 and Hazo. I'm just gonna stop speaking about the names. This guy at C1, you'll have 30% normal attack speed increase, which is rather ridiculous if you take into consideration that you can run this very easily with like a Yun Jin at C6, as well as get like, what, that's an extra like 20, 10, 15, a lot more attack speed, which is gonna be crazy. But onto what the actual weapon does. So 10% attack speed, and after the wielder unleashes the elemental skill, normal attack damage will increase by 4.8% every second for 12 seconds. After this, character it hits an opponent with a normal attack during this duration, normal attack damage will increase by 9.6. This increase can be triggered every 0.3 seconds. The maximum normal attack damage per single duration of the overall skill is 48%. So it just really promotes normal attack damage. They didn't really have to preface anything about a charge attacks in his actual character, but because of consistency of the character, they did. But this weapon here is extremely normal attack heavy, and you're not really going to be using his charge attack, to be quite frank, if you have this weapon, because everything here is just for your normal attacks, which is super good. Now, at R5, you can get a 96%, right here, you can get 96% normal attack damage bonus, which is a lot of damage bonus, to be quite frank with you. Now, again, not everyone's going to get these things at this degree, but if we take a look at the character at, like, let's say Supreme Power, he will obviously destroy everything with just casting his skill, because that is just his, like, normal attack mode, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous. But obviously not everyone's going to get that. This is a great catalyst, not even just for characters like Wanderer or Hazo. It's even good for characters like Yen Fei or Ning Wang. It would actually be decent on them. Maybe not so much Ning Wang because it's normal attack, but because it's crit damage, I think it's like one of the only two catalysts that is crit damage. This one and the Kagra's Verity, they're the only crit damage ones. So if you don't have a crit damage catalyst, this wouldn't be a terrible one to invest in just for a bit of generic use. So as for artifacts and character team compositions, let's talk about that really quickly. There's new artifacts being added next patch, apparently, with his launch, it seems. This one, two-piece Desert Pavilion Chronicle, which I believe is going to be the one for Mr. Wanderer. Essentially, two-piece is another 15% animo damage bonus, alongside Viridescent Veneer, which is the other one. And the full set is after charge attack hits opponents, this character's normal attack speed will increase by 10%, while normal charging and plunging attack damage will increase by 30. So yeah, you're just going to be really kind of blasting and blitzing if you get this one. So this is probably going to be the best one for Mr. Wanderer. Really no competition. You could run 2-set Desert Pavilion as well as 2-set Viridescent if you just want to go for Animo or something. Maybe you can run that on other Animo characters. Maybe you can do that something on like a Jean or a Venti or a Sucrose. I don't fucking know. Probably not. Viridescent is a lot stronger for those characters. But this is probably going to be his best one just because of the attack speed there as well. So you can get a total of 40% if you do a lot of things. And if you just have his weapon, you can get a total of 20% attack speed, which is rather incredible. As for the other set, probably not. It says Elemental Mastery, which that's a third Elemental Mastery set, 2-set, nice. And then it does like a lot of Bloom stuff and Burgeon, so you're probably not going to go for this one on him. So this is the artifact set that you're going to run on him. As for characters, well, we haven't covered Farazan yet, but you got to run Farazan. I already know that. You got to run that. And probably 2 elemental characters. Maybe a Cryo Pyro, most likely. But you also could easily run triple Animo here with just 1 element. If you want to kind of keep it chill, keep it cruisy, you could run something like a Wanderer, Venti, Farazan, Bennett, or Wanderer, Venti, Farazan, Cryo character for the actual good infusion thing, right? So it really depends on what you want. But 2-set Animo is going to be like a bare minimum, specifically Farazan. Scaramouche and Farazan are kind of made for each other, but also Farazan is kind of made to just be an overall unit, which we'll get into in just a moment here. Then now that's actually the conclusion of the Scaramouche section. Now that we've covered the artifacts, I need to remember to always include artifacts and team builds. So yeah, that's that. Hope you enjoyed. Okay, now that